Welcome to The Frequency. I'm Mary Angish. It's Wednesday, November 5th. Coming up in this episode, more on what Vermonters who rely on federal food benefits are doing in the wake of recent disruptions. Plus, a Vermont Public podcast hitting a big milestone. And we'll take a trip to a place known for having the worst weather in the world. Let's start off with today's top stories. As disruptions in food aid continue, more people are turning to charitable organizations. The Trump administration halted funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program over the weekend. And in Vermont, the folks who work at food shelves say they're dealing with increased demand and diminished supplies. Dan Moland runs a food shelf in Berry City. He says the spike in need was almost immediate.
I wouldn't say that we're out of anything yet, but there are certainly a number of shortages, especially in frozen protein meats. Kind of category is a tough one.
And in order to maintain supplies, many local organizations say they have begun rationing food. The Trump administration announced on Monday that it will issue partial SNAP benefits this month. It's still unclear when SNAP recipients will actually receive those benefits. A group of apple growers in Vermont has come together to raise money for some of their Jamaican seasonal workers. It's going to help their families who were affected when Hurricane Melissa struck the island late last month as a Category 5 storm. I spoke to Ben Rule, he's from Champlain Orchards, and they're spearheading this fundraiser. He said many workers who come to Vermont with work visas may return home to lost roofs, no electricity, and ruined farmland.
We saw these guys getting up to go to work. Many of them had still not even been in contact with their family. They knew a lot of their homes were destroyed and their communities flooded without electricity.
So far, the Vermont Apple Growers Association has raised more than $60,000. And a reminder that Vermont's DMV services, they're limited through November 11th. That's because of continued computer system upgrades that have been in the works for years. Online services are unavailable starting today, and limited in-person appointments are available today and tomorrow. Plus, all DMV offices and the call center closed to the public from Friday through Veterans Day. The Vermont Agency of Transportation announced that scenic Route 108, also known as Smuggler's Notch, was closed Monday night due to weather, and it's pretty likely that roadway will remain closed for the upcoming winter season. From apple pie to ticks, Brave Little State, Vermont Public's people-powered podcast, is celebrating a huge milestone, 200 episodes of Brave Little State. And to celebrate, they answered 20 of your most pressing Vermonty questions. Burgess Brown is here to tell us more about how they put together that 200th episode. Hey, Burgess. 200 episodes, that's huge.
It is. It's quite a milestone.
Tell me a little bit more about how you decided to put together that 200th episode, which takes 20 different questions, right, that you guys have gathered over the time of Brave Little State's tenure, right? Is that how it worked?
Yeah. We saw that number coming up on the calendar and thought, okay, I think we need to do something a little bit different and something special to celebrate. And so we decided, instead of taking on one question, let's take on a bunch. And because we have thousands of them, thousands and thousands of questions that we've gotten over the years. And some of them, while incredibly fascinating, might not take 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes to answer. And so we sometimes don't get to them. And so we went all the way back to the very beginning and looked through the entire catalog and archive of these questions.
Yeah. Can you name a handful?
Okay, sure. So we have, why is it UVM instead of UVT?
Mm-hmm. Burning question.
We got a question about a Vermont law that states that you have to serve apple pie with cheddar cheese. And we even got a question about Lawrence Hayes' Eye on the Sky sign-off and where he came up with that inflection.
Why do the weather forecasters sign off with such an odd inflection? Why is it, I'm Lawrence Hayes with an eye on the sky?
Oh, I love that question. That's Burgess Brown, producer on Brave Little State, celebrating their 200th episode. And you can listen to find out the answer to that burning question. The full podcast is available at vermontpublic.org or wherever you listen to podcasts. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll visit the home of the world's worst weather. That's after this.
Thanks for listening to The Frequency, where support comes from 802 Spirits. When you shop at one of the 80-plus independently owned 802 Spirits stores across Vermont, you're supporting local Vermont communities. Learn more about how 802 Spirits contributes to the spirit of Vermont and the Vermont General Fund at 802spirits.com. And Springfield Cadillac GMC in Springfield, Vermont, offering a wide range of pre-owned electric vehicles starting at under $20,000. View all EV inventory at springfieldgmc.com.
If you're a meteorology researcher or a weather geek, New Hampshire's Mount Washington Observatory is well known, and that's because the highest peak in the Northeast has the dubious distinction of being the, quote, home of the world's worst weather. It also doubles as a tourist attraction and a research facility. Actually, much of the research there ends up informing the weather reports that you hear each day. New Hampshire Public Radio's Rick Ganley hitched a ride up to the summit to learn more about what makes the observatory such a unique place for weather and climate research.
The fall colors were still putting on a show as we drove up the famous auto road that leads to the top of Mount Washington on what turned out to be a rather mild day.
Right now, I think at the base, we're probably at about 60 degrees, and at the summit, it's 35, so just above freezing.
And the visibility at the top?
Yeah, 120 miles right now is according to the last observation.
That's Charlie Buterbaugh, Director of External Affairs at the Mount Washington Observatory. The nearly 8-mile drive took us through several distinct ecological zones, from the temperate base zones of northern hardwood forest and spruce fir to the scrub trees and true alpine at the top. As reported, conditions at the summit were near ideal. Sightseers from around the world drive, hike, or take the Cog Railway in season to the peak to spend a couple of hours on the mountain, but the staff at the observatory spend more than a week at a time. One of their duties is to give tours.
There's a thing called the Venturi effect. What that says is that whenever winds converge, they also speed up. So what the mountain range
Cassie Farnsworth is from Ohio, and she's only been with the observatory for a short time. She's taking a group of visitors up the weather tower, a structure that resembles a short lighthouse or a castle turret. It houses instruments for measuring current conditions. I tag along and ask her how she came to meteorology. She says she actually trained to be a pilot.
But I just wasn't too keen on the idea of being an airline pilot and flying the same routes every day. I thought it would get too repetitive and too boring.
So what's been the most interesting observation so far?
I actually haven't gotten to do too much of it yet because I started a month ago, and we've had extremely calm and quite boring, actually.
No, but for a weather geek, that's got to be really disappointing.
It is, actually. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I'm waiting for that low pressure to move in and do something interesting.
Charlie Buterbaugh says she won't have to wait long. When the pressure drops and the winds pick up, this tower becomes a very eerie place.
It can sound like a runaway train. It's incredibly loud. Yeah, absolutely. Or freight train is, I think, sometimes the description that we hear a lot. Yeah.
The peak's weather is notorious due to its topography and the convergence of 3 major storm tracks. Its location, and the fact that it's the highest point for 1,000 miles, leads to extremes. The observatory conducts research to understand that extreme weather and climate by collecting precise temperature, wind speed, humidity, and other data at the summit, and they've been doing that every hour of every day for nearly a century. Meteorologist Alex Branton is taking one of those hourly observations just outside on the terrace next to the tower. Because those readings are taken in the same location with the same methods, they are very reliable.
Yeah. And that makes our data set really appealing to work with because we don't have to adjust any of that data to account for new technology.
That has implications for climate research far from the White Mountains. Mitchell Sakatis has joined the observatory team after earning his degree in meteorology in his home state of Alabama. His research focuses on longer-range forecasts based on past patterns.
The observatory has one of the longest standing climate records in the United States. So that makes our data set very homogeneous, which is great because we can compare apples to apples very well from the past to now.
Research here involves looking at regional and global climate change, air quality, icing impacts, and other specialized projects. And Charlie Butebaugh says it all goes to provide valuable weather information regionally and beyond.
Every single one of our hourly observations goes to the National Weather Service, as does all of the data from our remote weather station network around the White Mountains.
It was a beautiful blue sky day as we talked on the summit, but we know it can't last. After all, winter is coming. And that's exactly why researcher Mitchell Sakadas is here.
The wind chills can get crazy low. I mean, we've had 3-digit negative wind chills before. So things get crazy up here, and if you love weather, you got to experience it when you can.
No matter the conditions, they'll be up there collecting that data and doing that research. For the New England News Collaborative, I'm Rick Gamley.
And we'll end with a look at today in Vermont history. We mentioned yesterday about the intense, catastrophic, and historic flooding that hit Vermont in 1927, also known as the Great Flood. And on this date, one town, Barry, was dealing with the aftermath. A headline in the Barry Daily Times from November 5th, 1927 reads, "Barry's loss may be $2 million. Restoration started. Great floods in New England." Now, that $2 million has the same buying power of $37 million in today's money. Thanks to the online inflation calculator for helping me with that math. That's the frequency for today. We had additional reporting from Peter Hirschfeld, Nathaniel Wilson, and the New England News Collaborative. Adia Golston produces the episode with Stephanie Colombini editing. And our music is by Blue Dot Sessions. This Day in Vermont History comes from Vermont History Explorer. Talk to you again tomorrow.
Sources and methods, the crown jewels of the intelligence community. Shorthand for how do we know what's real? Who told us? If you have those answers, you're on the inside, and NPR wants to bring you there. From the Pentagon to the State Department to spy agencies, listen to understand what's really happening and what it means for you. Sources and Methods, the new national security podcast from NPR.